ta sẽ đến với phần của diễn giả thứ hai, Welcome Mr. Lim Sanji. Và anh Lim Sanji sẽ hướng dẫn chúng ta với chủ đề Build a Social World Completely Serverless with Firebase and GCP. Và trong quá trình làm thì như bài đáp trước thì mọi người có điều gì cần hỗ trợ thì mọi người có thể giơ tay để ban tổ chức có thể hỗ trợ mọi người.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon, Hanoi. My name is Shangi. I am from Malaysia. So just a show of hands, how many of you been to Malaysia before? None? Okay, never mind. You should come visit sometime. Okay. So this presentation will be in English. So I hope you guys are okay with English, because I don't know any other language besides English. So, and of course Chinese, yeah, as well. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask, please go to the link there and you can just enter the message on your phone, preferably in English, or I'll have the girls there to help me translate. And so my name is Lim Shangi. I'm a software developer at Idea Hub. It's a startup in Malaysia. So I'm also a Google developer expert for Firebase. So I do a lot of talks and a lot of activities for participants about Firebase itself. So as a GDE for Firebase, I have been to a lot of conferences around the world. So one of the few notable conferences I've been to is the Firebase Dev Summit. Have any of you watched this online at home before? Cool. So the first thing that I entered the hall is to notice this social wall that's happening around the event, to show you what activities are going around the event. So you have people taking photos and uploading on Twitter. So how many of you have Twitter accounts? 1, 2, wow, many, okay. So I'm gonna do an experiment. Hopefully those with the Twitter accounts are able to help me out. I'm gonna give you a hashtag. Let me just go back. So, if those with the Twitter accounts, I would love if you could just pull out your phones, right, and just use the following hashtag, Goolge Next Extended 19. Take a few photos around the venue and upload it on Twitter. So yeah, that's the hashtag. So those with Twitter, I would love if you could help me out here. This is for a demonstration later on. So with that in mind, I'm just gonna proceed to the next slide. And of course, the TensorFlow Dev Summit in San Francisco, they have the same thing as well. And also the Chrome Dev Summit happened last year, they had the same thing as well. So these are actually what we call as social walls, where they show you social media engagement by the participants at events. So there is a particular vendor that is doing this. It's called Walls.io, which I myself wanted to use this service as well for my own events, because I am a Google Developer Group organizer for Kuala Lumpur as well. But it costs money to have it updated all the time. So as a developer, what will you do next is to build your own version of exactly the same thing. So that is why I created a social wall for my community. It's called, so we use it for events, of course. And of course we use it for social media presence. So if you guys are like bored before the event starts, right, you can start tweeting about it and put it online for everyone to see. And you can of course change however you want it to look like. So these are some of the features that my feature wall has implemented that is entirely serverless. So there's no back-end server sitting somewhere where I need to deploy all the time. I need to configure or load balance these servers as well. So these are all of the features that I've implemented without having to think of any sort of backend servers, an Apache server, a Kubernetes server, or whatever that you can think of. All of it done to you, for you by Firebase. So let me just show you a demonstration of the app at the moment. So in this app, this is exactly what I built for events. So in this case, I use the hashtag cats. So what happens here is that the hashtags gets pulled based on a scheduler. So the scheduler runs every 2 minutes from the Google Cloud platform. So the reason I chose cats for the demonstration is because this feed gets updated all the time. So you should see new feeds rolling in every 2 minutes. I've configured it to run every 2 minutes, so that you don't get too much feeds coming in all the time. So this is one of the features you can actually build with GCP itself and Firebase. So as you can see, we have a new post running. The last post was 2 minutes ago. So the next new post should arrive anytime soon. And of course, we can configure all sorts of things here, right? For your event, you can configure the title, you can configure the hashtag you want to show to the users. So just now when I asked you all to use the hashtag Goolge Next Extended 90, we are going to show exactly those kind of information directly on this wall as well. So let's proceed. So how would you build it? How would you build a social wall or any other application you might think of from the ground up? So as software developers, right, you always think of two sides. One is your front-end side, where your user interface will go, and your back-end side, where all the business logics will go to, and all the other stuff that you need to do and store like text data into the database and all those kind of back-end logics, all has to go in the back-end. So this is the most basic way you would build some product. Any kind of product, you would have two sides to the story, right? The front end and the back end. So in this case, the front end will be used to basically show what the users can see. And the back end we use to pull Twitter and Instagram feeds every 2 minutes. We can of course change this configuration on the fly without deploying anything. You can moderate posts as well, because sometimes people post things that you don't want others to see, and somehow it finds its way into the feed. We can of course do moderation. We can of course update hashtags. We're going to demo later on. We're going to change the cats hashtag to the Goolge Next Extended hashtag. And you'll be able to update client configurations, which I will talk about later. And of course, you will need to host your front end, right? After building your app, you need to host it somewhere that can be accessible on the internet. So this is the most basic way you will build an app, in this case, social wall. So in order for your front end to connect to your back end, sometimes you use server-side rendering technologies, for example, PHP. Or you will do something as common as an API call from the front end to the back end. So in this case, I would have an API that will call data from your back end to pull and show to your front end. So you pull all your feeds, your Twitter feeds, and show it on the front end. And this app itself is a real-time application, so new data gets fed all the time. So that is why I mentioned WebSockets over here. So you will need WebSockets connection to keep alive so that new contents get poured over all the time. So let me just show you whether you have it. As you can see, right, in this feed, you will see new content was added. You see the last few contents are being added as we speak. So as long as new contents get fed through Twitter or any of your live users, you get data instantly displayed by the real-time capabilities that you would need to build as a developer. So in this case, you'll see that the API, backend, and databases are all in your application servers at your backend. So now, as a developer, if you want to build social code, you think that there's so much things to do, right? Now you feel that, okay, in order to do something as simple like this, now I have to consider my database, what backend to use, what kind of API do I want to use in order to build this. So it gets a lot in your way of just building features. You just want to build a product that people will use. You don't want to think about too much of the complexity behind it. So that is where Firebase comes in with serverless technology. So how many of you know what Firebase is? So let me just explain a bit. Firebase is an offering by Google in order for you to quickly build applications, specifically mobile applications, games, as well as web applications, in a way for you to not consider, or you don't have to take care of the back-end side of it. So let's take a look at this architecture that we previously have to do if you do not use Firebase. And let's try to do it with Firebase in the GCP environment. So the first thing is, since Firebase is serverless, you don't need a physical server to be present to host your things. You don't need everything in this area. You do not need your API, you don't need your backend, you don't need your databases. All this goes out the window. So if you consider what kind of database you want to use MySQL or Postgres or whatever SQL that you want to do, just get rid of that out the window and you do not need to do that anymore. So if you're using Firebase, you can actually easily do everything I mentioned just now within the Firebase console. So you don't need to purposely create a new server, run a kind of server application technology in it. You can just run it directly with Firebase. So let's take a look at what we're going to do. So in my app, the social wall app, we have our UI, which is actually hosted in Firebase hosting. You can see here. So where do we actually store our data? Of course, we need data that we pull from Twitter to go somewhere, right? In this case, we're going to throw it in our Cloud Firestore. So this is a NoSQL database offering by Firebase. You don't need to install it in your computer, you don't need to install it in your servers, you don't need to load balance it. You don't need to do a lot of things. All you do is just enter your data and you get your data. So let's take a look at Cloud Functions. This is where your backend logic would go, right? So as a developer, when you need to write backend logic to do this and that, when you get data, you need to process it, you will typically need to find out what kind of backend solution you want to use. Maybe you want to use J2EE, or you want to use Express.js, or some sort of backend technology. You can easily just replace that with a Cloud Function, which basically runs JavaScript at the back end. So in my case, my Cloud Function is pulling data from Twitter servers and storing it inside my Cloud Firestore. And our last but not least will be our Cloud Scheduler, which handles the every 2-minute interval thing that we pull from Twitter. So let's take a look at how it works. So first thing is, we have something that triggers every 2 minutes. So as a developer, right, how do you create something that triggers every few minutes? You will write some sort of batch solution, correct? Or you will write some sort of cron job on your backend solution. So if you have been working with Spring before, you have something called Spring Batch. If you have some other backend solutions, they have their own offering of how to create a backend scheduler. Or if you're just anything will do, you don't really want to use any frameworks, you will of course write some sort of timer that runs every second in order to keep track of every 2 minutes. So we actually achieve this with the Cloud Scheduler, which I'll show you later on. And the Cloud Scheduler will then trigger a Cloud Function. So a Cloud Function is basically a function that runs on the cloud. It's a magical function which you write and upload to the cloud. And that function will of course call data. In this case, the function I will call Twitter API, or in Instagram API, to pull feeds from cat, #cat. I will pull it, I'll pull all this feed, and then I process this data if I want to, and then I store it inside my database, in this case, my Firestore database. After I've done this, my client will actually go to the Firestore and read the data directly out. So earlier on, you saw the UI, right, where you saw the cats appearing. Yeah. I don't know why somebody uploaded that with the #cats. It's not supposed to happen, but you know, this is where it's an opportunity for you, right, to actually add something in the middle here, where you can call the Google Vision API to check for bad content, if you want to get rid of the content that is not supposed to happen just now. So just ignore that. So In this case, the client is directly connected to the database by the Firebase SDK. So you don't need to write connection strings, you don't need to write select statements, you don't need to group and stuff like that. Everything can be done with the Firebase SDK for you. Even the real-time connection that we mentioned earlier on, where you need to do your own WebSockets connection in order to sync data in real time, is automatically done for you by the Firebase SDK. So you just add the script in your head tab, and then just write some code to pull what you want, and you're done. You basically get real-time connection data directly from the client to your database. Notice that there's no REST API in the middle, there's no application service in the center, it's just directly pulling straight from your database. And of course, earlier on, if you want to moderate data, like we would have just now, if you saw that content, you would of course write some way to authenticate it, so they can moderate it yourself. So of course, sometimes we think that getting access to data directly from the database might not be secure, correct? But in this case, what we want to do is that we want to make sure that you as a developer know what is secure and what is not secure. In this case, the feed from Twitter should be open to all, but the area where you can update the post, where you can delete the post, can only be done through an authenticated layer, which is provided by Firebase for you. So let's just go on. So before we go to the takeaways, let me just show you the database itself. So this is the backend itself, the Firebase console where our database lies. You see that I've actually created a few stuff inside with our admin configurations. So only users that log in with my email can actually access and edit the data. So in this case, you can see that I've actually created a configuration for search. So in this case, earlier on it was cat. So now I'm going to change it to what you guys have posted earlier on. So let me just change. So I'm changing the hashtag over. I'm just going to delete all of these posts that we don't want. So I'm going to change something as well. So let me just go back to the UI. Okay, let's just refresh this, pretend you don't see anything. So here I can change the subtitle of my app. So as you can see, once I make changes directly on the database, you will see that the changes are automatically done on the UI as well. So this is the real-time capability that I was talking about. So let's just go here and let me just show you something. As you can see earlier on, you guys posted about Twitter, right? So you can go on and post more about the Goolge Next Extended as well. So I am actually in the Google Cloud Platform, where you can see this is a cloud scheduler which is used to trigger itself. So as you can see, I actually created two cloud schedulers here. One is to run the Instagram function that will pull data from Instagram. one is to run Twitter itself. So as you can see, the frequency is a standard Unix cron expression. So in this case, every 2 minutes, you can adjust this as you want. And this will actually pull something from the functions, which is the pull Twitter API. Do you see this function name? So this function name actually corresponds to the Firebase cloud function itself. So let me just show you. So I've actually created a few functions in Firebase that will run based on what you want it to. So in this case, I actually created 2 functions at the bottom. You notice there is a pull Instagram and a pull Twitter feed. It runs on a pub submodel. So this will never get triggered until something subscribes to it. In this case, the cloud scheduler will run in 2 minutes and will call this function pull Twitter API to pull data from Twitter. So let's take a look at the code itself. It's a bit dark, but as you can see on the left hand side, I have a few functions. In this case, let me just go to this.
Sorry?
Where?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So here is basically a simple TypeScript function, basically a superscript of JavaScript, I would say. So that is something you can use to write. So basically, this is your backend code that runs entirely on the server. So there is no server-specific code that's written here. All you need to do after you're done with this is just type Firebase deploy, and it will deploy your functions for you. And in this case, this is the code that I'm getting to get my data from the server, pulling data from Twitter, and then storing it inside my database. So I'm storing all the data from Twitter. I'm of course getting the value from Twitter directly here, and this does not have a server itself. So basically everything here is TypeScript, and I'm running a Firebase function. All I need to do is just type Firebase deploy, and that's it. So let's go back to the slides. Let's see whether we have new content as well. Did you guys post any new content on Twitter? So let me just check. So only one person actually commented, no one else. But anyway, that's basically it. You basically can pull data from Twitter, Instagram, and stuff, and you can actually do this entirely with the cloud functions for Firebase and all the other serverless technology Firebase has offered. So here are the few takeaways for you. First thing is developer effort reduced by key functionalities. So for stuff that you need to work, you don't need to think about the complexity of what you need to do to deploy this infrastructure on the cloud. All you need to do is think about all the proper user business code that you need to write. In this case, coding data from Twitter, storing into the database, but you do not need to actually consider how you want to deploy the application server online, what kind of backend framework you're going to use. And the next most important thing is the reliable and scalable performance. Firebase itself runs on top of GCP, Google Cloud Platform, so you are guaranteed 99% SLA for Firebase as well, in this case for Firestore. So our functions for, let's say imagine a time, right? Let's say you have a lot of 20,000 people that is using your app in one instance. The cost for reading for one user that is using your app versus 20,000 at the same time is exactly the same. So Firestore itself prouds in their ability to keep things as fast as possible, so that you as a developer, you don't need to consider these scenarios for your development work. So you don't need to load balance it yourselves. Everything is taken care for you by Firebase. The next thing is secure database. So let me just show you a little bit of what I mean by secure database here. So as you can see in this UI, right, everything is public facing, so there is no security here. But let's take a look at the database end. So let me just go back here. We have key critical information that should not be edited at all, which is the configuration. All of this configuration should not be editable by the users. So only these are exposed to the client side by using Firebase rules. So Firebase rules are very advanced, powerful rules, which you can use to determine who can look at what kind of tab. So you can see that the search configuration, Facebook configuration, and tweets are all cannot be accessed by the users. Only the users can access the, just scroll down, post. So they can read data from the Firebase database, but they cannot write data back in. So that way, your application is secure. So how do we check whether a user that accesses your app is an admin or someone you trust to access the database? Is by using some of Firebase rules functions. In this case, is to check whether the admin and checking their authentication itself that is provided by Firebase for you. So the last one would be ability to extend services. So what I mentioned just now, there was a classic example as you saw the tweets, right? There was something that shouldn't be in that area. As you can see, I actually asked for the hashtag of cats. I do not know why the person going to put hashtag cats, but put the person's body there. So here we can actually extend to all Google Cloud Platform services, all Google APIs, including Translate API, Cloud Vision API, all the other APIs that Google offers for you can be directly used in a cloud function. So if you have used some of Google APIs before in your own systems, you will need to consider how to create a secure connection to the, how to authenticate your connection to Google Service API. So in this case, the cloud functions, you do not need to authenticate at all because the cloud functions is hosted in the secure environment in Google, as well as so that your code can immediately run directly on Google APIs as well. So if I need to call, for example, the Cloud Vision API, if I need to call the Translate